You can also get emergency war surgery on it for free from Red Medicine stuff, like history textbooks, things like that, believe it or not, they'll come in handy when you listen to it. So this is my third and final installment or day of helping you guys out with advancement. This is not my slide. I did go through it, and I was trying to finish it off before I came over here, but unfortunately, because I was trying to catch up a lot this morning from yesterday and Monday and all these other things, I wasn't able to get it updated because I wanted basically to cut out all the extras that's in here and just give you the real meat and potatoes of what you need to know. Or, portobello mushrooms if you're a vegetarian, whatever. Basically, just so you know what it is you really, really need to know. There are 2 slides out here that actually are duplicate. I'm going to go on to remove those, so we're not going to talk about those. But I went ahead and printed it out and highlighted basically the things you really, really need to know. Chapter 1 is more of a history. Thankfully, you don't really have to know anything about that, and the actual life cycle. But it's like basically a tiny little thing that's inside of a tiny little mosquito that gets inside of you, things like that. And affects your liver, and the whole life cycle is in there. And there's like 4 different types of, actually there's now 5 different types of Plasmodium. Vivax, Falciparum, Ovale, and Malaria. Am I right? Am I forgetting that one, or is it the right one? And there's a new one, but it's only being transmitted between monkeys right now, or apes, if you will. All right, so I went ahead and, this is based on the actual, I want to say it was a combination of the previous one and the new one. If you've ever seen one of these, they're basically little pocket guides. So when you're planning on deploying, you're going to get ready to get out of here, it's like a little tiny pocket guide, and you just stuff it in your pocket, throw it in your bag, because people tend to forget these things. A lot of these things take place in the planning portion of the deployment versus it being part of like when you're there. Unfortunately, preventive medicine is a lot of the times reactive medicine because it really likes to listen to us. We keep telling people no until finally they're like, oh wait, something bad's going on. Just like, do you remember when I told you that maybe you should wash your hands? That's right, then maybe you should wash your hands. All right, so there are going to be 4 tactics to really prevent the disease in the field, and that's going to be not only for malaria, it's actually going to be for like disease overall. Determining any kind of disease or injury threats in the area of operations prior to deployment, so if you're in the pre-deployment stage, we talked about it yesterday during chapter 9. Identification or development or employment of any kind of countermeasures, education of personnel regarding threats, training on correct use of countermeasures, basically being like, hey, this is a malaria endemic location, you should probably put up your bed nets. You should probably wear your uniform, sleeves down, blouse. You should probably make sure that you are not sleeping next to a body of water. Things like that, pretty simple. And enforcement of countermeasures. That's going to be more so on the leadership portion. A lot of times they're going to, please agree if this has happened to you before, a lot of the times there'll be someone who'll be like, oh, it's medical's job. It's like, nope, that's a leadership job. They'll come up to us and be like, hey, can you come over here and teach someone how to literally watch their body? No, that's not my job. I'm not gonna go tell somebody, I'd like to see how to do it. I did it twice in Afghanistan. They're like, you need to come over here and make sure that they do showers. I'm like, really? It's a grown ass man. Why? No, that is a leadership issue. So a lot of the enforcement is gonna come from leadership. So having that good rapport with whoever the camp commandant is or your unit commander is gonna be paramount to making sure that these things are enforced to the maximum they can be. Things that I would really, that I actually highlight myself here are going to be these right here. There's going to be personal protective measures, which are going to be like uniforms, chemoprophylaxis, which are vaccines and medications, and unit protective measures. Unit protective measures being like a group, like a unit saying, hey, we need to get all of these bed nets. Hey, we need to get these uniforms treated. All right, so it's basically like individual, holistic, and then as a whole. The big thing to note on that is that none of them are going to be 100% effective because what do we have here? Exposed skin, right? What typically happens after you put on bug spray or DEET? You want to wash your hands, right? So what happens? You're effectively washing it out. It's not 100% effective no matter what you do. For information, the primary sources for this are going to be the National Center of Medical Intelligence. I did bring this one up yesterday during chapter 9 because that is where it's a unclassified open source location, and I would really write this one down because I have in fact seen this one on multiple exams. It's a repository of information across the entire globe. The NEPMUs that are responsible for that area, once again, NEPMU 2 is the East Coast and basically all the way up to Europe. NEPMU 5 is over in the Pacific, all the way down to like freaking South America, Peru and stuff. NEPMU 6 is in Hawaii, and then you also have NEPMU 7 over in Rota. In addition to this, that I was actually putting into the new slides, is that we also have what's called NAMRUs. Those are Navy Medicine Research Units, Research and Development Units that are across the world. We have one in Dayton, Ohio. We have one in San Antonio. We have Lima, Peru, which is now called NAMRU South. We have NAMRU in the Pacific, which is Singapore, and NAMRU East, I believe it's called. They renamed them from being numbers to like regions, and that was in Cairo, Egypt. So if y'all interested in becoming a PMT and go to some of these flashy places, detailers are over in the freaking building right now if you guys want to get something like that. NetBees, of course, are going to be like your primary go-to. Barrier methods, overall, they're going to be effective against like as a measure against like any kind of vectors. However, once again, they're not 100% there. But they are the first line of defense because at least having them is like the first thing. Like knowing where it's at, like your gas mask, is like the first thing. You know. Topical repellents, successful use requires wearing uniforms treated with permethrin and topical repellent exposed to skin. So that's another fancier, longer word of saying what they call the DoD arthropod repellent system. Anybody take a guess what it is, not the PMT?
Treating uniforms and wearing heat.
What else?
Bed nets.
Bed nets, correct. And prophylaxis. Basically, those three on top of bed nets is like what they call the DoD arthropod repellent system. The PMR course that I teach actually has like a little thing, like a little like how-to on there, just to make it simple. And it's actually an Army Public Health Center from Aberdeen thing, because the Army uses a lot of visuals, which is a good thing actually. Original uses for this began in World War I. And if you remember the first slide that I showed you yesterday about the history of disease non-battle injuries, higher disease non-battle injuries versus gunshot wounds and explosions and stuff like that from World War I all the way till now because of disease. What happened in 1910? World War I, right? That type of time frame. What type of warfare did they have? Trench warfare. Standing bodies of water, ticks, mosquitoes, flies, illnesses that can be transmitted by vectors, right? So obviously, hey, we got to figure something out. Citronella is a plant. The extract was actually put into, they would put it on like baskets and stuff all over the place, and they would try to impregnate the uniforms with it. Impregnated meaning as like you're actually soaking the uniform in the citronella. Ended up with the discovery of dimethylphthalate during World War II, and ultimately was the development of DEET in 1957. Anybody who's ever goes to core school or PMT school, they show you this pretty narrow video of like in San Antonio when they used to do like fogging. Like, has anybody ever seen like fogging at night in a high mosquito location? Like they literally had like kids playing in a park and they were like fogging them with like like insect stuff. I was like, that is illegal, but it happens, and it still happens to this day. The part of Texas where I'm from is South Texas, by Rio Grande Valley, South Padre Island. You ever been over there? They still do that a lot because actually we have a lot of West Nile in the area because it's right by the river. Beautiful area. SpaceX is there now too. It's like it used to be really cheap, now it's really expensive.
They do that in South Palm still, like the
Yeah.
countries up
They
there.
do it in Nebraska.
They
Oh.
fog when the people are out in the city.
Now, well, they're out. Actually, at Camp Lejeune, I was the lead like sprayer for all of the training sites. Camp Lejeune is huge if you've never been to. So I would actually go to the entire AOR. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning to get in that truck and go start spraying down. Because they get bad. There's a certain species of mosquito called Serophora. The genus is Serophora. They're huge. Like you're talking like that.
Yeah, they're pretty
Is
fucking
it the
huge.
one with the blue stripe?
I don't think it's a blue. They're just the largest ones that I know. I didn't even identify them. I was like, it's the biggest one, but that's a Serophora. My entomologist was just like, yeah, fuck it. Excuse my language. But those can actually bite through your uniform, even if you have mark hats, they'll still bite through your uniform, and they hurt. Deer flies too, they're terrible. I would remember this right here. The effective range for most repellents that are here now in our inventory are going to be for 12 hours overall, and that's for topical repellents. 12 hours, topical repellents. DEET, 12 hours.
You know the gold standard one too, because that's usually on the test.
Yeah, DEET is the gold standard. Overall, yeah, it's gonna be DEET that's the gold standard. Flat out DEET. There's another one that they may ask you about, but for the most part, it's gonna be DEET, because DEET is gonna be what you need on exposed skin. So again, we're going into DEET right there. Those are your different name brands that they have right there. So Ultrathon, it's a green can. It's made by 3M. It's basically in all the inventories. If you go to like ServMart, you'll see cans and boxes of it. Like they come in cans, they come in lotions. But overall, you're going to look at it's 30% to 33% DEET. But overall, what you're going to see is specifically DEET. The second one you're going to see is going to be picaridin. Icaritin, I've never seen it that way, I've never seen it spelled that way, but picaridin is by Sawyer. It's a little blue bottle. If anybody's into camping or backpacking, I used to do it a lot when I was in the Northwest. Don't do it so much here because it's really hot. But it's basically a lotion that you can put on, and it does the exact same thing. However, certain locations, specifically AFRICOM, it is not allowed. You have to use DEET while you're there, flat out. It just depends by the combatant commander. So the area says flat out, hey, no, it's not effective against this, which is why we have the NAMRs in Cairo doing research and development. Hey, you can't use that because it's not effective against attacking mosquitoes in the malaria that we have. So you have to use it. The other thing too, they're all through the federal stock system, which is basically just the like Dibbles. PR builder, as you said. Permethrin and permeated uniforms and other protective clothing. So this is going to be your longest lasting thing. You can't directly apply to the skin. The reason behind this one is actually on the next slide. Yeah, it is. It's very, very concentrated, what it is. Right? So like you get your uniforms, and if anybody who's wearing the MARPADs, those are already come pre-impregnated with it, so they come stock that way. Once they run out of that stock for you guys that are green side and going back to green side, they are not done that way anymore. They're produced the exact same as these are, which these do not have protection on. And that's why us in the PMT world, for anybody who's that, is we're gonna get busy when that starts happening. That's an off. They last for about 30 to 40 washes, I believe. Up to 50 washes, they say. But that's for the other one. I believe the MARPADs are only good for about 20 to 30 washes. And if you wash your uniform at least weekly, I hope, that's going to go away pretty quickly, right? Problem is, it is the member's responsibility to buy new uniforms, which is why you get a uniform allowance. Now, you may argue and say, yes, I have a uniform allowance for my Navy uniforms, and I brought that up before, but they refuse to do that. So a lot of people enjoy taking their field camis. I do too, to the field because they're nice and soft and they're broken in. But do they have any protection? Absolutely not. So when you're in these positions, you should probably say, or deploying, even going on a ship, you should say, hey, maybe you should put out a new set of uniforms. I'm gonna be spitballing here. But it just depends on the person too. Again, this is where like enforcement by and support by the chain of command is hugely important. So don't piss off whoever's your commandant, gunny, first sergeant major, freaking master chief, whoever. Don't piss them off. Be like bloody with them. The thing about this one is that it's better against crawling arthropods like ticks and flying insects like mosquitoes or biting flies. Biting flies would be like deer flies and certain other types of flies that are actually out there that like can actually penetrate through and bite. There aren't too many. I mean, there's millions of insects, but there aren't too many that we're really worried about. But it just protects against that. They cannot be treated. They cannot be retreated with permethrin once again. So uniforms that come pre-impregnated cannot be retreated. Cool? They cannot be. I did make a note here, actually.
We definitely did that last year.
Oh yeah, no, I've done it too. And unfortunately, you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to do it. For the test reasons, you are not to retreat uniforms. I will say here what I wrote down, if you're a commanding officer, battalion commander, or combatant commander says to retreat the uniforms, you have to write a memorandum. You have to make sure that they get a copy, and you have to send that over to the Armed Forces Pest Management Board. Because that could put other people at risk long term, because these things could be potentially carcinogenic. And long term, like, can screw you up actually. These uniforms do not come type 1s. Anybody know what type 1s are? Blueberry, right? Type 1s, 2s, and 3s, they have to be manually treated. You can either do it by aerosol, which is good for 6 washes. It's those sprays, it's a Sawyer as well, and they come in these like, they look pretty like daunting. If anybody's seen like Return of the Living Dead, like they're like green military cans, they just say pesticide. It's really, really random, but you have to go out there and you gotta spray them. But they don't last for very long. The IDA, I would write that one down, your individual dynamic absorption kit, that's what we call the shaken dates. They're little green bags, they come about that big. Inside of them is a small concentrated permethrin solution, and 2 bags. One for your top, one for your bottom. Throw them in there with with that and some water, agitate them, hence the shake and bake, if anybody's ever eaten a shake and bake. And then you actually like let them out to dry out, and you have to wash them, and then they're good for up to 50 washes. Pesticide spray application, that's because it's concentrated, done specifically by PMTs or entomologists. That's when you see us out there with our respirators and our little can and like spraying them down to make sure that's the case. You'll get that a lot when it comes to like, Nephews do it for like the people that they're going out with, but if you're ever approached by anybody, it's gonna be a lot of people going out for the ship things, what's it called? But yeah, Pacific Partnership and continuing partnership and stuff like that, because you're going to places that potentially have and like, or that are endemic to malaria transmission. So you will see PMTs out there like spraying and stuff. If anybody's ever interested, actually, a non-PMT can help out with it too, as long as it's under our supervision. So if you ever like want to, for lack of a better term, not go to work and be outside the sun with us, then you can go out and help us.
You make it sound
But
I have a great time doing it.
so-
I don't like being in an office anymore, and I don't have a choice.
So put stars next to the 50 washes ones because those ones have been on the exam, and then don't get it confused with your 45-day wear of your mop gear. So 50 washes is for when it's talking about these stuff with Promethean and everything else. 45-day wear is gonna be for your mop suits.
Furthermore, it's just a little more information on those right there. One thing that I would remember, when it comes to treating uniforms, and I would write that one down because I think I did, yep, I did mark it off here. Like I mentioned on the last slide, your IDA kit, that's for individual for using, so it's right there, 2 separate bags, 40% permethrin. See that and that? 40% permethrin, I would remember that. The permethrin that we spray comes in 8-ounce bottles, and it has to be diluted with 2 gallons of water. There's a certain flow that we're actually supposed to have, so the sprayers are supposed to have a gauge, so you can actually spray them so you get the right concentration on every one of the uniforms. 40% permethrin, 8-ounce bottles.
So would like the service member just like bring you their uniform and just be like, hey?
Usually it's a unit level thing. So like if you have like a company of Victor 26, or they're gonna come and they're gonna go to wherever, because they're gonna be wearing like the old tricolor uniform, the BDUs, for like whatever exercise. They will literally come with all the uniforms, drop them off, put them on, parking deck, parking lot, whatever, throw on our respirators, and then we're out there spraying.
Can you do that with like coveralls on the boat and stuff? Or no?
Yeah, they can. The only issue is that they're unit funded, and that's what stops them. Because commands don't like paying for the command. And you will find, whenever you guys go grade set, if you haven't yet, you will find that that's like a huge problem. And even to this day, I still buy my own little bottle of bleach to put into the AMOL because I would much rather deal with bleach than having to deal with 60% calcium alpha-chloride. But that's just for me. Some other protective netting, these are other parts of PPE. The insect repellent mesh parka, your insect head net. I actually carry mine in my backpack all the time. Because do a lot of vector surveillance, because he like really comes at me. For some reason, it bugged me in my neck. I don't know why. Nowhere else, just my neck. So you'll see me out there with like my hat and like little parka thing.
Bug catching net.
Nets and poles. The new ones, if you've ever seen them, they're by this brand called Katoma. They issue them specifically to Victor units. They're not part of like the logistics or aviation side, but they literally just pop up. They're about the size of the projector when they're condensed down, and they're pretty great. Like I have one. I'm not gonna say how I got it, but I have one, and I take it with me every single time I go out to the field. Even if I'm in a hangar, I take it with me because snakes, spiders, people are dirty in the field, and that happens a lot. Fever prophylaxis, these are recommended by the CDC overall, and by all the doctors and tri-services and everything. For the prevention of malaria, we have to confirm with the responsible nephew for the AOR, or the combatant commander, because they typically work hand in hand quite a bit. They do the weekly, monthly, and quarterly reports, even annual reports, so everybody kind of knows what's out there, what's endemic, what's coming, like leprosy being a thing now in Florida, like malaria being found in Florida and Texas, like enterohemorrhagic, or not enterohemorrhagic, but Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, which is tick-borne. You guys saw the hemorrhagic fevers that are tick-borne in the previous slides that H1 was teaching. That are pretty major. That's all over Europe right now. We're probably going to have our next war. Personal opinion. The regimens are going to be determined by a bunch of different factors. Suspected drug resistance, like the mosquitoes actually have a drug resistance for, if there are, there's one specifically that there are, I think it's methylquin. There are certain mosquitoes that are resistant to that, so they can still transmit malaria regardless of it. Actually, I should have asked you guys this. Which mosquito specifically transmits malaria?
Female anopheles.
Female anopheles. Cool. You guys remember that. Length of time on the endemic area, because a lot of these things actually, okay, like I mentioned at the very beginning, malaria affects what part of the body? The liver, right? So being on these medications for a long time affects your liver, all right? And if you're in a place that's malaria endemic, let's say Manas doesn't exist anymore, but Manas, Kyrgyzstan, right? That was like a hub, an Air Force base that was out there. It's endemic for malaria, but you can also drink while you're there. So you're supposed to take your anti-malarials, which cause liver damage, and people still drink while that's happening.
Especially the Marine Corps units.
It's fine. It does happen. It does happen.
You gotta watch them like children, because.
Hoorah! That was a good time. My buddy didn't drink, but I was like, good. I'm not at all saying that you guys should drink. Do it responsibly. What else from here? G6PD deficiency and other medical contraindications. You can get really into the weeds with this, but it has to do with the absorption of the medication, basically. Young age pregnancy. You can be out in the field or the fleet till 26 weeks pregnant,
20.
I believe. 20 now? I always forget those because I know they gave me the 12 weeks off for my daughter, and I was like,
I hate you. I wanted that.
I was cheap and no, I did not like her at all. She was one of the ones that took the 18 weeks, like in 2016. It was the best 18 weeks of my life. Next to like one of my daughters. Chemophilaxis pro, during, and after. I believe it's on the next slide for that one. But yes, before, during, and after. They all have all malaria species have bloodstream stages, right? So the reason why is that you have to take what's called presumptive anti-relapse therapy, or it used to be called terminal prophylaxis. You shouldn't see that on the terminal prophylaxis shouldn't be on the exam anymore. It might, but it shouldn't be on there. But most antimalarials must be taken for 4 weeks after you return. So that has been on the advancement exam. So as soon as you come back stateside, or if you happen to be in Japan or wherever, you deploy with a Victor unit or a riverine boat, gunboat, whatever, brown water Navy people, you still have to take your medication for 4 weeks after. The only exception to that is going to be Malaria, which is then only 7 days post-exposure continuation. The one that I have seen on the exam is going to be how long do you take doxycycline after you get back? 4 weeks.
Yeah, this part stuff is on the test. They want you to tell. They'll probably say, "Hey, what does part stand for?" And then they will have the 4 week and 7 day time frames on there.
I know, yeah, a specific listing as an example.
Is there a certain one they like utilize more than the other one?
Say again?
Is there one that they like lean towards versus another one? Or is it just the availability of?
I hate to put it this way, but a lot of the time it's costly. And I can tell you the cheapest one is doxycycline.
Yep.
I have two 1,000 count bottles at home right now. If you ever go greenside, medications have to be, the units pay for their medications, right? And at the end of the exercise, if it's not used, they keep the medications. But if the battalion aid station doesn't need them, a lot of times you literally just have to throw them away. So hey, you want a bottle of, you want 1,000 count bottle of, 600, 400 ibuprofen? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can it come with some socks?
You know the best part is that? Part of the angle, the 699, which you guys may go over, because I think you're gonna go over it a little later today.
Yep, today.
699 is your sick call block, right? Two things you can find in there: water test kit and drip drop. You guys know what drip drop is?
Oh, I love drip drop.
Yeah, they have an entire box in there. I literally took 2 boxes with me after my last exercise. I was like, I gotta go buy another sea bag. I'm just taking a bunch of stuff home. Good stuff. I would definitely look at that. All right. Does anybody remember yesterday when we talked about tuberculosis? What DOT is? DOT?
I won't answer.
Anyone? Directly observed therapy. That has been on the exam before. That is when the person comes in and they take the medication in front of you. Now, the way that it happens more so on the green side or expeditionary units is they literally line up, everybody gets a pill, you watch them, guzzle it down for full compliance.
Yeah, like check their tongue and stuff too.
Yeah, I open up, do all that stuff. You have to. And unfortunately, it's because a lot of people won't take it. And I will say, corpsmen are really bad about it too. Corpsmen can be very, very bad about it. The one dude that I mentioned earlier that I had to literally go and wash was a corpsman. Yeah, we were at a combat outpost and we went out to the PPs and stuff, but like we had a shower. Like it was like a bucket thing, shower, and you see the mountains, it was great. But that's going to be the preferred way of actually administering these medications. It's proven by the World Health Organization and other public health authorities because you are actually watching them take the medication. That's why it's like approved, that's why it's recommended, that's why it's like, hey, maybe this works. However, chain of command support is extremely crucial. You may get whoever your first lieutenant, second lieutenant, what are they in the Navy? Ensign or whatever. Yeah, I spent too much time with the kids to really remember their ranks. I call somebody a major earlier.
Most of the time they're going to be your LTJGs or LTs over there.
LTJGs, LTs, things like that are going to be in the Navy side. And a lot of them can be very gung-ho and be like, we don't need that, we don't need that. It's like, well, yeah, you do. And if they're not supporting that, that's like your biggest, that's going to be your biggest hurdle. So chain of command support being extremely crucial for this program to work specifically. Most preventive medicine programs, actually.
Mostly anything in general.
However, the regiments for it are all going to be in the CDC's yellow book. They're going to be country specific. It's all online now. You can even use SCMI, TRAVAX, and AOR COCOM publications. So if you're going to Africa, right? This is Africa overall. You can go to the AFRICOM command website, US AFRICOM, and they'll give you specific guidance and something. So they have a very specific, I think it's the AF 43 or something like that. You have to get routed in order to enter the country, period. A friend of mine's is a staff sergeant. He's a, what do they call him? Embassy guy. So they were very specific as to how they do it. Actually, I told Josiah about it. He was in Grenada. No, I can't remember where you're from, man. Guyana, there you go. Yeah, he was at the embassy there in Africa, stuff like that. Those are your prophylaxis right there. So one of the reasons why Doxley is very recommended is because it's prophylaxis overall. But between that one and Malarone, it's typically cheaper. And unfortunately, being part of the Department of Defense, they're always going to go by whoever is the cheapest, not the highest bidder. Kind of unfortunate, but just kind of is what it is. Those are your dosages right there. The only thing I would note is going to be your 100 milligrams daily. That's actually going to be also for your STIs when it comes to chlamydia. It's going to be either that or azithromycin, 1 gram of azithromycin for that, directly observed as well. And if you've never taken it, it tastes disgusting. No, I didn't have an STI. I had an ear infection. And it was terrible. I was 30 years old and got an ear infection. How did that happen? Earbuds. So running a lot with my earbuds, sweat accumulated. Green said your PT in your uniform, didn't get to shower as often. Every day, but not after continued ear infection. Man, that sucks.
So I don't know if I was gonna mention it on here, but because this instruction goes over it and it is mentioned in multiple chapters, just make note of it. On that last slide, it says for the part therapy, there's 4 different species of these mosquitoes. So the vivax and the ovale are the 2 ones you need to know that are going to be treated with the part.
Yep. For the relapse portion. And I would also note that I don't know if that might be in your exam, it shouldn't be, because it's not even mentioned in this one, but it's possible. Plasmodium falciparum is the deadliest one. P. falciparum is the most deadly version of that.
Can you spell the second word?
FALCIPPERM, I believe. PRUM? PRUM, I believe. Plasmodium falciparum. P.
Most
falciparum.
deadly.
That's the deadliest form of malaria.
Okay, I got a question. I know the mosquitoes carry it, but is it like an organism that's in their body? Is it just like a bacteria?
It's a protozoa. It's an
Okay.
actual. So if you can imagine like how tiny. I explained this the same way last week to the second class candidates. I was talking all day. My mouth was like raw from talking all day. I really enjoy teaching, but it's like taxing on my delicate lips. So think of the size of a mosquito, right? So a mosquito is like tiny, 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 tiny. So inside of the mosquito, there's actually, if they're actually in fact infected with the malaria plasmodium, it is a tiny, tiny protozoa that lives inside of it. So if that little thing, I'm not gonna say it's a dude or a woman, dude or a chick or whatever, gets on you and bites you, that tiny little thing gets in your bloodstream, right? And it travels and travels and goes all the way to your liver, and that's where it replicates. There's 4 different stages: the blood stage, the
Schizonic stage, infectious stage is like, there's a
blood stage, liver stage, and things like that. And that little tiny thing that's inside of that little mosquito gets inside of you and just wreaks havoc. That's basically it. When you actually look at the like a female Anopheles mosquito, because specifically a female Anopheles mosquito transmits malaria, they actually have what looks like a little trident for their mouth. Only one part is what they call the proboscis. The proboscis actually has about 13 or 14 parts on the inside of it that actually it retracts back like that, and it actually penetrates the skin. It's like a little saw. It's kind of like a tiny, tiny, tiny little saw, and it goes into the skin and it's like a siphon. You typically won't feel it biting you until it's been in you for a little bit. It's an amazing. Mosquitoes are absolutely fascinating and incredibly amazing for what they are. There's a book that's actually called, I think it's God's Perfect Creature, and it literally is that because a mosquito can destroy the world. When you really look at it that way.
But if you want in-depth knowledge, this publication right here goes into the weeds about every little thing about the mosquito, the cycles, the stages, everything.
Okay, so the mosquito like sucks your blood. How does the protozoa get into?
Going inside,
Just
going back in
backwards.
as well, just backwards.
Okay.
Yeah, it's eating, and they breathe too. They have little ear tubes, siphons that are actually by their spirchets. They're on their sides of their head where they actually breathe out of. But it literally flows because it's like just a tube. They don't have the same control that like a lot of animals do. So it literally is like whatever's coming out is coming back in. Like it's just back and forth. And the reason why that happens as well is because once, let's say, they actually poop as well when they're full. So like once like the mosquito is full, it'll actually poop on you. Like it'll fill itself up so much with blood that it'll like just immediately just poop. Making room for more, I guess. Yeah, they're amazing creatures if you ever get a chance to look at them. I identified at least 8,000 in 2020 alone. It's a lot of work. My eyes are dying. Like I had bad vision right now. Once again, you're seeing right there. That's like the 3rd or 4th time you've seen that. So just remember that 40% concentration in 8-ounce bottles. I don't know why that one's there. That's just different. But for unit protective measures, like we talked at the very beginning, the unit level is going to be as a whole. So that's when your actual unit, your VC, whoever it is that's in charge of your unit that's going out, is going to be saying, hey, we need to get these seeds treated. All right, and that's when it comes to preventive medicine, and we're out there, and we're at whatever conditions, make sure you're doing treatment.
Does it have to be like good weather outside in order to do it, or can it be like?
It can't be raining, that's basically about it. Because if not, then the wash up is gonna go there, and you have to worry about it leaching onto the ground. There's a lot of policies we have to follow, specifically with the EPA and stuff. NMCPHC has been in for a while, it has been doing it for a while, we'll tell you that it gets pretty much in the weeds out there. Like, you can't kill bees in the States, you have to use non-lethal methods to do these things because they're actually protected, they're federally protected. My unit almost got a $10,000 fine for killing bees that were protected in Arizona one time. Location of the camp, so going back to the very beginning of it, right? So when you're doing the pre-deployment stages, finding out where, when you're actually out there with the NEPs are the ones that typically go out and they'll do the site assessments, along with your environmental health officer for your unit, if you have one. Typically it's gonna be at the highest echelon, so like headquarters, right? They'll go out and do a food and water risk assessment. That is one thing that we went through yesterday. And they're actually going to go through the terrain and look at everything. This is where you have your scientists, the USDI, do maps using all these fancy tools. Thankfully, I had access to them because my wife works for FEMA. So I get to see these like pool maps. I actually get to see crime maps and like official crime maps and flood maps like prior to living there. It's pretty great. Kind of helped me pick a house a little bit better. But these are the things you have to consider. Presence of mosquito breeding sites, specifically sunlit streams, shaded lagoons, rice fields, and marshes. Rice fields and marshes and shaded lagoons, that sounds a lot like South Pacific, right? Africa, the heart of Africa type stuff. And actually, like marshes and lagoons, Florida, right? So it kind of would make sense that they would show up in Florida. Proximity to settlements with malaria-infected inhabitants, so like a place that's endemic, where malaria is endemic. Length of time that you're going to be present in the area, the entomologists have to be consulted. And the reason why is because if you're going to be there for 6, 7, 8 months plus, you have to basically look, you have to plan for that far ahead. Okay, what are you going to do with the water? We talked about that yesterday, right? Like the subcompost and everything. You need to figure these things out prior to start. Like, there's a lot of planning. It's not just everybody go make it. That's important. Exposure biting times. This is for everyone here. Dusk till dawn. That's when they like to bite. That's when they're most active.
Don't miss on that last slide about the retreatment of nets too. So the time period on there was 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, your equipment can be treated. Uniform, because your equipment is not physically on you, obviously, like touching your skin. Like my personal, like Grace said, like deployment bag, like my actual, like my rucksack. I have one of everything. If you've ever dealt with SIF, you'll understand why. I have one of everything of mine. I actually treated it. So like it's literally just sitting in my storage unit, like treated, and like bugs literally die around it because I went ham on that thing. I did a lot of rucking back in the day. I don't really do it too much anymore because it's hot. And people drive crazy here. Distance from any location there, your camp should typically be about anywhere from 2 to 3 clicks away from any kind of settlements. That's also for safety, but it has really nothing. It's more, for this one, it has to do with mosquito transmission. Mosquitoes actually can't travel very far. Maybe about 100 yards, a few hundred yards, but they really can't travel too far. A lot of these things get transmitted to us and to places because of travel. Same thing happens with like rats, right? Fleas, they get on you and then they go somewhere else and they spread that way. Same thing, they're like convenience travelers. The lifespan of a mosquito is not very long, about a day, more or less. So unfortunately, they spend more time like developing, growing before they actually become mosquitoes than they do actually alive. It really isn't long. Okay. Then I'm gonna fall asleep. Vector control, this is one big thing. I actually just recently dealt with this yesterday. As soon as I made it back to the office, it was a fun afternoon. There's going to be 2 stages: surveillance and control. Surveillance has to happen before control happens. You have to make sure that there is a prevalence of mosquitoes or whatever it may be prior to you saying we're going to spray. The policy overall is you use the least amount of chemicals as possible. All right. And the reason why is because these chemicals can leach onto the ground. They have long-term effects on people, on organisms, on water, on anything. All right, so Overall, less is more. You can control these things by, I don't know, you see like a bucket of water and dumping it over in like the heat of summer, that is control. If you see, they sell like little briquettes, little dunks, like at Lowe's, Home Depot, big box stores like that, and you happen to have like a creek behind you, or like a pond or something, you can grab one, dump it in there, and it's the larvicide that kills them. There's a lot of different manners in which you can do these things. Like for example, if a lot of people don't like them, but possums are incredibly possible. Like they're so great because they can actually eat about 100 ticks, 100 to 1,000 ticks in one meal. And people think that they actually can carry rabies, but it's not as common because their blood is actually a little bit cooler. They can carry rabies, but it's not as common. Raccoons, those dudes, yeah, those are, no. But you use a lot of environmental controls. If anybody is from like New York or Chicago actually, about a year or two ago, they released a whole bunch of spayed cats. And why? To kill the rats. When I was in Afghanistan, we had a cat, and we kept the cat because like the warrant officer that we had kept on making food in his hooch, and he kept on getting rats in there. And he's like, "What are we gonna do about the rats?" And I was like, "I don't think don't eat in there anymore." I mean, how about that? That's control, right? Refused to do that. So we ended up, a cat hitched down to one of the trucks during the convoys that we did. Came there, and we just like let him go to town. It was all good and fine until a female cat showed up, and they would not let us sleep at night. And then at that point, we had to get blue juice and.
Did you say blue juice?
The blue juice.
No, see, I just have an army of animals, not asking.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is another reality of the red medicine world. If you are asked to do it, we have to go out and put it down.